There are very few people who would not associate the word Dracula with the word vampire, and as a matter of fact, I believe if I approached 100 people asking them to name a famous vampire, then I'm super confident actually, that at least 90% of those answers would be Dracula. However, I didn't approach 100 people, and this whole scenario is a guesstimate, but in all seriousness, there's a lot of credibility behind what I'm saying. Anyway, Dracula, even if he's not your most popular vampire of all time, he is definitely the most widely known vampire of all time. It doesn't matter how big of a franchise you put before me, whether it's Twilight, Vampire Diaries, Vampire Chronicles, Buffy the Vampire Slayer, Underworld, The Lost Boys, Blade, True Blood, I can go on and on. The count will always be right up there at the top. He is at the stem of so many vampire sagas and stories that were created over the years. He's even mistakenly believed to be the first ever vampire to be written about, but it's not entirely true, and I'll get to that shortly. Tales of vampires go back to the times of ancient Greece, detailing people being attacked and drained of their blood, all the way to medieval times where the paranoia of anything out of the ordinary was immediately associated with the devil and all things evil. Now, moments ago I just said that Dracula wasn't actually the first recorded story of a vampire. That publication does fall under a man named John Polidori, which was titled The Vampire. Simple enough, except it was spelled with a Y instead of an I, and was written in the year 1819, 78 years before an Irishman by the name of Bram Stoker released a novel called Dracula. This is the story that many of you are familiar with, and the story that ignited the massive obsession with all things vampires, or basically, it was given gothic fiction a new platform. As an additional fact, the biggest critique that was aimed towards Stoker over his Dracula novel was that it was too scary and was actually frightening readers. For the time it was written in, it really shows that the book was actually way ahead of its time. Stoker also brilliantly developed Dracula's character arc and his powers, strengths, speed, power of seduction, supernatural gifts, how he consumes blood, what it does to him, while also addressing his weaknesses, vulnerabilities, and most importantly, we learn how a vampire is killed in comparison to just how powerful a vampire can be. There's nothing really left undiscovered, which is why it's such a satisfactory story, which is why it was replicated on the big screen so many times with very minimal changes. Dracula's actual character inspiration is believed to be taken from a man known as Vlad Dracula of Transylvania, a vicious warlord prince who garnered the name of Vlad the Impaler due to his, well, I'll let you work that one out yourself. Earlier notes from Stoker's work on the novel did show that he intended to have a werewolf make an appearance, but later opted against it. The novel also gave birth to the first vampire hunter, Abraham Van Helsing, Dracula's original nemesis. There have been a number of widely recognizable portrayals of Dracula over the years, most notably 1922's Nosferatu, which was heavily based on Stoker's story. The tall, thin, rat-like vampire with its elongated front fangs remains a mainstay in today's pop culture, but despite Nosferatu's fame, it was one of the earliest cases of copyright, and Bram Stoker's heirs actually sued Prana Film, with a court actually ruling in favor of having every copy of the movie destroyed. Fortunately, however, several copies survived, and we are able to still witness such an influential masterpiece of cinema. Universal Studios went about it the right way, however, and purchased the rights to Stoker's novel and everything that came with it. In 1931, 34 years after the book was originally published, Dracula, the first ever full-sound version of the story, was released with the legendary Bela Lugosi taking on the role of Count Dracula. It was this performance and this movie in particular that really shot Dracula to fame. The movie was a massive commercial and critical success upon its release, and led to several sequels and spin-offs. It has had a notable influence on pop culture, and Lugosi's portrayal of Dracula established the character as a cultural icon, as well as the archetypal vampire in later works of fiction. In the year 2000, the film was selected by the United States Library of Congress for preservation in the National Film Registry as culturally, historically, and aesthetically significant. The movie's success gave the studio the confidence to dive right into the horror culture of movie making with the hugely successful releases of Frankenstein, The Mummy, and The Invisible Man. As for Lugosi, despite his popularity, he didn't reprise his role as Dracula until 17 years later, when he appeared as the Count in the movie Abbott and Costello Meet Frankenstein. Christopher Lee then took Count Dracula to new heights with his Technicolor film Dracula, released in 1958. The movie was was hailed as one of the greatest horror movies ever made due to the ability of maintaining its shock value despite the original story itself being over 61 years old. Lee played the vampire for well over a decade before retiring from the role after completing 1973's The Satanic Rites of Dracula. Vampire culture really began to take off following the release of Anne Rice's Interview with the Vampire, which really pushed the vampire genre onto the scene with a focus on a new lead known as Lestat the Liancourt. Dracula's next memorable appearance didn't come until 1992 with Francis Ford Coppola's Dracula, or its full title of Bram Stoker's Dracula, and received incredible reviews. It got 4 Oscars and a very notable performance by Gary Oldman in what was described as a more sexier portrayal of the Count. We then had Dracula 2000, which is one of the worst Dracula adaptations I have ever seen. I don't know what it was about that 1999 to 2003 period where absolutely every single piece of media, whether it's TV, movies or music, had to have that new metal look and feel to it, like everything ever made in those years was sponsored by Evanescence and Limp Bizkit. Here's something that I really enjoyed watching and that I think is quite underrated: Jonathan Rhys-Meyers' Dracula. I loved it. I loved his ambition to be able to walk in daylight. I loved his character arc. I think it was unfairly forgotten about because it wasn't renewed for a second season. 7.3 out of 10 on IMDb and 75% audience score on Rotten Tomatoes. Anything with those scores and I'll give it a try at the very least. 2020 Dracula TV series is the latest installment of the Count as he takes on his original nemesis Van Helsing in a widely favourable show, a mini-series really, that could have held its own as a standalone movie. It's actually a series that I'll be covering pretty soon on the channel. The Count has appeared in plays, musicals, operas and even a ballet, such is Dracula's popularity. So because we've taken a look at how Dracula has been portrayed throughout media and how the character has been developed in different productions, now let's actually take a look at his story so we can all have the final reminder as to just why the vampire has been so impactful on pop culture. Let's take a look at the original novel, the original story, the original concept, no changes. Let's go through a summary of the vampire's origins. Dracula's story begins with an end really, an end to his tenure in Transylvania as he seeks to move to London. In order to sell his property, Jonathan Harker, a qualified estate agent, is sent to Transylvania in order to assist the Count with his move on a consultancy basis. He stays in the Count's castle, but Harker soon gets the impression that he's being held captive. 3 vampire women who appear to live in the castle have targeted Jonathan as their next victim. He narrowly escapes with his life and comes to the conclusion that Count Dracula left him there to die instead of the original plan to accompany him back to London. Harker makes it back to London, but it's not long before he recognizes Dracula. Having already been aware of what Dracula is, evident from the 3 vampiric women trying to kill him, Jonathan soon concluded that it was indeed Dracula who has killed Mina's best friend, Lucy Westerna. He joins forces with the vampire hunter Abraham Van Helsing in a quest to finally destroy Dracula once and for all. However, once Mina becomes the Count's primary target, with the Count's goal to make her his immortal companion, Harker makes the promise to do what must be done if Mina is turned, but in actual reality he is willing to become a vampire himself if it means a life with the woman he loves. Despite Dracula's immense power, he is most vulnerable when he sleeps and is open to an attack from anyone who discovers where he stores his coffin. He can only rest on soil from his homeland, which is why he has so many boxes of earth with him. Due to Mina's blood sharing with the Count, Van Helsing is able to use the connection to discover Dracula's location. Jonathan slashes the vampire's throat while his heart is pierced by Harker's hunting associate Quincy Morris. Dracula crumbles to dust and Mina is free from her would-be fate of succumbing to the life of a vampire. As you can see guys, that's just a quick summary. I really don't want to expand too much on the novel because I really suggest reading it yourself. It's fantastic. However, if you would like me to do an in-depth review, a complete breakdown of the book, of the original novel, then please let me know in the comments section below. With that being said guys, that is my video essay on Dracula's origins and his effect on pop culture. If you like this kind of video and want to see more, then let me know what character you'd like me to cover next. Thank you so much for watching. I really appreciate all your support and I will see you very soon.